I realize we still have some sensitive feelings out there of certain people that wanted, the mass arrest or everything, and now think March 4th is actually the inauguration date, and U.S. is a corporation and all that. Stop the fantasy, okay? You got to get back. I want to draw you back to reality, and I understand it's going to be painful for some people. That's why the amnesty bill they put forward was always going to be their signature piece of legislation. Radically changed the country by basically giving full citizenship within 8 years to what certain of the groups that say this said could be up to 25 million illegal aliens. That is dead on arrival. Dead on arrival. If you don't think that is a massive victory, you are dead wrong. You do not understand the way the system works. They're going to try to break it up into executive orders that can all be reversed. And they're still going to look statutorily, and we got to compete. We got to fight all of that. And the working class Hispanics that now almost 40% vote for President Trump are our allies in that. This is the way you actually thwart the radicalization of the radical nature of the Biden administration. We're in the grind, okay? We're going to give you top level, but we're in the grind right now. You've got to stop this in its first 100 days, the radical nature of this. And if you do that, it's all going to work out. If you let these guys run the tables on you in the first 100 days, you're going to get run over, and you're going to have tread marks on you. So you're in the grind right now. And by the way, you're stepping up magnificently. Everybody in town is telling me the phone calls, the emails, the sharing, becoming a force multiplier, sharing the information is just unbelievable. And that's what it takes to win. This is what it took back in 2016. Just remember the days, what it took to actually build this movement, what it took to get Trump to win the nomination, what it took then to get to win the 2016 election. And by the way, we're going to have a lot more on this as this impeachment trial comes up, as they try to basically purge the 45th president of the United States from the political process. Okay, I want to turn now to Mike McCormick, the author of Biden Unauthorized. You said something yesterday after the jump when we came back, when I had a little bit of time with you about I was asking about the cognitive ability of Biden, because it's pretty shocking. I mean, he took some question, but this is not the guy that was there, the hail fellow, well-met, glad-hander, car salesman of the neocon, neoliberal of the Obama administration. There's something, and it's even, they could hide him on the campaign. They're trying to hide him in the White House, but when you see these moments, he's just not altogether. You made a statement. You've been up close and personal with this guy since, I guess, 2011 when you were in the White House. You said yesterday 50%. I would say 10, 20, 30, 25, 30, a third. You jumped to 50. Obviously, that caught a lot of attention, particularly from conservative or right-wing media. And I asked you to come back today to back that up. How do you back up that he's at half capacity?
You know, thanks, Steve, for having me back. I travel with Joe Biden overseas with him, but I listened to a lot of his campaigning. So 2016, he was a vibrant campaigner. He was pushing really hard for Hillary. He was out there in Pennsylvania campaigning retail politics. That's a specialty. He didn't do any of that this year. He's been hiding out. Joe Biden feeds on crowds. There aren't any crowds for him. He's going to do so is he? Does he?
Okay,
have
but their rationale for that. Hang on. Their rationale for that. It's COVID. It's CCP virus. COVID-19. He's a glad hander. He loves crowds. He loves touching people and sniffing heads. But you got his arms up there now in the Washington Mind. The reason, Mike, he can't do that is COVID-19.
That's BS. They're just trying to play. They're hiding behind fences and symbols. He's going to do all these symbol things, and that's not really Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a go out there and get it done guy, to the extent that anybody in the Obama administration ever got anything done. But he's going to have a speech this afternoon about race relations. That's a really big deal for him. We'll see how long it goes. If he goes shorter than half an hour, that's not Joe Biden. Right. Joe Biden would talk off the cuff for 20 minutes about race in speeches in the past. He's been put in a position, I think, where he has to be almost like the placeholder president. People are telling him what to do. He's agreeable to it.
Okay.
And he's manipulated into this.
I want to go back to the speech, because they said when he was on Senate Foreign Relations, and he would take like 45 minutes all the time. He give him a speech that's 15 minutes long. He goes off the glass. He goes off the teleprompter for another 45 minutes, right? And unlike President Trump, that's always got some humor, or he's putting a dig in or trolling somebody, Biden would just kind of wander around and just go forever. You're saying one of the big tells is he doesn't do that anymore?
That's right, exactly. He's not Joe Biden. He would talk about his parents. He'd talk about his past, his history, all these things. He'd wrap that in. We'll see what he does this afternoon. He's got a story on race relations that goes back to him being a public defender in Wilmington and being at the Wilmington train station, and then getting on a train to be with the first black president down to their inauguration in 2008. If he doesn't work that into a speech, that speech was written for him, and he had no input into it. He may work it in with a word or two, or maybe a phrase or two, but if he doesn't spend 5 minutes on that story, like I've heard him, or 10 minutes, that's not Joe Biden. And by the way, it's not just speeches. He can't do a press conference. 3 weeks after President Trump started in the White House in 2017, he did an hour and 15-minute contentious press conference, full room, full on face the press. Everybody in the White House press corps. Joe Biden will not do that. I defy him to do that. That would be the real Joe Biden. We'll see if he can do that. The press would love to have him out there in front of them. He won't do it. He's scared. They're hiding behind symbols and fences.
Well, when they went in, when they went in, and when the president went in, it was in the lion's den. I mean, they were all. And I kept saying, put president up there. He does it better than anybody. You're right. You couldn't have the same intensity of hate that came at Trump in the tough, tricky questions. Mr. Raheem Kassam.
You know, when President Trump first came onto the scene, and they pilloried, lambasted, mocked him for his winding sentences, and the fact that he'd start a sentence and then end up somewhere else, and then he said, and the whole joke, right? I have the best words, and they kept making fun of him for that over the course of time. But interestingly, we were going through some of the first week transcripts on the WhiteHouse.gov website, and I encourage everybody to do this for themselves. We may even find time to put them up as a compilation on the National Pulse. But we're going through them. The number of sentences that Joe Biden has already in transcript lost his way through, cut off halfway, just ends up talking about something completely different. And by the way, I was joking with the producers at Real America's Voice yesterday. They say, hey, Biden's coming on. They said to me, Biden's coming on most days at around 3 p.m. now, so your show's going to get preempted. I said, I'm not worried about it, because he'll be up there for about 5 to 8 minutes after the rest of the show. If anything, Biden's my warm-up act for the rest of the year.
He's coming on 3 p.m. because of the Sundowner situation. That's what he's coming down. That's his energy.
But he's not spending the entire hour up there.
Yeah, yesterday they allowed him. Oh, he took a couple of questions and moved on. Okay, I want to go back to the pressure cooker. Remember, all the easy problems get solved way before they get into the Oval Office. When you get in the Oval Office, it's enormous. Every problem's got enormous complexity, multiple sides to it, not just the politics of it, but the impact of it, how it works on the global stage, even domestic situations now, because they're so inextricably linked into the world's economy. The Situation Room is another whole level of complexity. You've been up close and personal with this guy. Let's take particularly China, where Jen Psaki doesn't even know the basics of the executive orders they're signing. Not important, just the power grid, right? Letting the CCP back in the power grid. How do you think, how is he going to handle, and the word's got to start leaking out, as you get people in the Situation Room, particularly when you're looking to mount a counter to China, which he's been absolute crickets on, with the Xi throwdown from Davos yesterday, or the speech that was from Beijing but through Davos. So, Mike, what do you anticipate is the pressure cooker, the cauldron that is the modern presidency? How's this guy going to hold up before he blows another gasket?
I just think he's so pulled back from reality almost. It's such a strange demeanor that he has. It's like there's no passion in Joe Biden now. There's no joy. So I don't know if he feels pressure. I don't know if he expects it. And it's really being I think passed down to his lower level staffers that are handling it. I think he's just sort of a placeholder at the top who's kind of bumbling along, and other people are making decisions.
Do you think you've seen him up close and personal? Do you think he's medicated?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't say that, but he's got a demeanor now that is unlike I've ever seen him before. He's reserved to a point of almost being, almost maybe potentially medicated. Couldn't tell you, but possible.
Okay, Mike, I got to ask you. Our audience is a huge book buying audience. These are readers, these are thinkers, these are people that are activists, and we got the global audience that want to know what's going on. They want cutting edge books. We had a book on yesterday, Boomers. The audience didn't exactly salute. I love the author, but they didn't love the book. Okay, they didn't like the whole direction of the book. Why should our audience buy a biography of Biden called Biden Unauthorized? What are they going to learn, and why should they drill down and spend not just the money, which is not that big a deal, but their time, their precious time reading your book?
What happened in the Obama White House is I was Joe Biden's stenographer standing with him next to the press. They're going to see the gap that I saw between what the press was saying about him and the reality. They're going to see him being massively embarrassed by Vladimir Putin. I don't know how Joe Biden can go back into Moscow based on what I put in my book. You're not hearing about it in the press. His relationship with Xi is in the book. And, there's a lot more development behind the scenes. I had to sort of skim over the relationship with Xi because I just sort of had what I saw. The deviousness that has come out of China since I published that book a year ago is sickening. So they're going to learn about the Joe Biden and the Obama administration, kind of how they were handling world autocratic dictators, Xi, Putin, Tayyip Erdogan, and handle them badly, how they were handled by them, manipulated by them.
Okay, here's a go. You're saying today the tell's going to be, you're saying he's a 50% capacity, cognitive ability. The tell today is going to be the race speech. I want to again state the evidence is going to be in the race speech by what? Tell people what to look for.
If he doesn't mention Barack Obama, that means Barack Obama wrote it. If he doesn't talk about this trip from Wilmington, that means it didn't have his passion in it. We'll see what it has in it. It probably has a couple lines about that.
And you're saying if he doesn't go off script and talk for 45 minutes, that's a tell.
Right. Yeah. If he doesn't get passionate about it, it's a tell.
Okay, Mike, how do people get access to you? How do you get access to the book?
www.joebidenunauthorized.com. If you buy the book off the website, 10% goes to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It's a great group. And Joe Biden introduced me to that group. He can't go back there to that memorial fund. They won't have him back. He's a president.
Wow.
He used to do ceremonies there. They're no longer a law enforcement Democratic Party. It's no longer a law enforcement party.
Okay. Give me the website one more time so people don't have to go to Amazon. They can get it and give a contribution to law enforcement. What is it again?
www.joebidenunauthorized.com.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. Raheem, your thoughts on Biden's cognitive ability. This shows you the corruption of the mainstream media, the corruption of the tech oligarchs. They're banning Trump. They're banning Trump's followers. But they've continued to push the lie that this guy's at the top.
Yeah, I think there's an incredibly shaky house of cards that's been built now within the White House. I think that goes from the press secretary all the way up to the president. There are people there pulling the puppet strings of Joe Biden. It's very clear that he's not in charge here.
Not even in charge, not on top of his game. I mean, how's a guy...
I meant in charge of his own faculty.
Yeah, how's a guy in the Oval Office, how's he in the Situation Room, the pressure cooker that is the modern presidency? I mean, Donald Trump, love him or hate him, and that's a guy that brings it every day, brings the heat every day. And he would tell you it's a heavy lift day in and day out, 7 days a week, 365. Okay, we're going to come back. We've got some analysis to do. We want to talk about CCP and everything that's going on next in War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, John Frederick's Radio Network, Real America's Voice, Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, every distribution platform in the known world I want to go to. Make sure you go to warroom.org, warroom.org. Join. Should I just let you do this, Raheem? Aren't you better at this?
I was going to jump in, but I kind of wanted to see where that went.
Jump in. I don't even know where I'm going here.
Let's go to org. It's warroom.org/join. Warroom.org/join is the URL for you guys and gals to go to in order to sign up. If the big tech censors remove us from everything else, you'll still have warroom.org/join. You can sign up for the newsletter. We communicate with you every single day. The shows are there. I still get a lot of people reaching out to me saying, hey, I used to watch on YouTube. Where do I go? So I want the audience to take part in that process as well. Make sure you help other people find us. warroom.org/join.
Go to americasvoice.news. You can go there. Get us every day. That's the live chat. We want you in the live chat. Go to americasvoice.news. That's our distribution and producing partner. Also, text War Room, one word, to 888-111 to download the app.
Why do you always say 2 as if it's a number? It's not a number.
No.
Text
okay.
War Room to 888-111.
Because they write it down for me. On this stuff, I'm a moron. I need a script. I'm on the glass. Also, minds.com, Gab, Rumble. Go to Rumble. I think we got like 400,000 people on Rumble.
Massive
already.
on Rumble.
We're massive on Rumble. Give Rumble a shout out. We're going to have more of the tech guys. Trying to get a tech guy on here every couple of days to give you new platforms. Podcast in all its glory. Want to thank the podcast audience. I understand you don't get to see the visuals. But
I think we're on Telegram now as well.
Telegram?
I think so.
Telegram?
There were some fake War Room accounts, so I think we set up the real one. We'll get the URL. Right. We'll get producer Dan to get the URL to
Populous Press. We're on Gateway Pundit, on the great Citizens Free Press
every day.
They pick up
Patriots.win.
Patriots.win. The bad hombres over there. Breakfast of bourbon and nails. Right? Maybe they dropped the bourbon, just eat the nails now.
Yeah.
You've got hold it. We got
I have the Telegram.
Whatfinger.com puts stuff up. Everybody puts stuff up. Links to it. So make sure. Revolver. The guys at Revolver. We want you to all the sites. And before I get to it. This, people have been giving me stink eye on the getting back in the habit. It was not a habit. I had maybe one, maybe two Red Bulls.
Uh-oh.
And all of a sudden, so winningdrinks.com. It's owned by Patriots. It's American made. Winningdrinks.com. Can we put that up there? They've got a great. The cans got Trump on there. You're getting tired of winning. It's an energy drink. It's sugar free. Winningdrinks.com. I don't want anybody in the engine room or the war room light me up on this, right? This is a Patriots drink. Got that up there? Okay. Go to Winning Drinks. You get energy drinks. By the way, if you got anything else, everything on here.
Bourbon and nails flavored.
Bourbon and nails flavored. Everything on here. We never ask you for any money. It's all free. Every aspect of it. We want you to sign up. You get a newsletter. You get show notes. You get clips. We want you to be a force multiplier. Send it out. Particularly send it out to people that hate the sound of Trump's name, or if they heard Bannon's name, they'd spit on the floor. I want you to send clips out, and you'll be very surprised after one or two clips. People start, look, a third of our audience are former Democrats or people who are the Bernie movement that are just tired of seeing a guy sitting up there with mittens with no fight in it. We're the Fight Club, fights that matter. And particularly for millennials, you're nothing but Russian serfs. When you get the joke of how the economics has crushed your generation, you'll start to listen to the War Room and understand how we're trying to unwind that and give you freedom, like the freedom that Lao Beijing, old 100 names, the Chinese people that are enslaved by the Chinese Communist Party. So Raheem tells us Boris is going to join us, by the way. So it's a big day on impeachment. Today they're going to swear in the Senate, and they're going to take a 2-week break. So another historic day. They delivered right at the end of the show yesterday the instrument of impeachment. Today they're going to, and it was very ironic. A year ago, yesterday, we had our 1-year anniversary, and we were talking about the exact same thing. In fact, people got confused. They thought it was the open. They thought it was the open for the regular show. It turned out it was from exactly a year ago, talking about pandemic and talking about impeachment. Another historic day today. They swear in the Senate, 2-week break as the president gets together his defense. Boris Epshteyn will join us about what that defense is going to be. I think it looks like they're going to be very narrowcast and not take the broad alternative of actually showing the receipts state by state, which I think is still one I would absolutely do. Raheem Kassam, thoughts, comments, observations?
Well, I want to go back just a second and talk about the free part of this. The point is that this is free. We don't ask people to part with any money for this show.
Yeah, we're supported by the advertisers. It's advertising based.
We only ask for you to take the actions you want to take, right? And whether that's purchasing somebody's book who you like, or attending a seminar held by Matt Brainerd, or whatever it is, right? That's up to you. And that's the way it should be, right? We're not trying to force anything down your throats. We appreciate you as grown-ups, as big people who make your own decisions. As Nigel likes to say, you're big enough and you're ugly enough to decide for yourself what works and what doesn't. Which is why a lot of this, when it comes down to some of the feedback that I get off this show and off the Pulse, a lot of people reach out to me and they say, okay, but where's our central hub? Like, how do we know what to do and all of this stuff? Well, look, this is your news, your philosophical central hub every day. This is 2 hours and an hour in the afternoon of information that you're getting every day.
Plus the National Pulse and Mills, 4 hours.
And the Pulse.
Right.
What you guys choose to do with that, you know what works, right? You know what success looks like. You've done it in your lives before. You see other people doing it. You have people like Brainerd and other people on to help us out with that. So just think about that today. Make that your daily thought.
Remember, it's unrestricted warfare. Unrestricted warfare has a couple of pieces to it. Information warfare, economic warfare, and kinetic, okay?
Right.
The information and economic is where we can win. Information, right now, just say, I'm going to be a force multiplier. What I'm going to do is take all this in from every different aspect, and I'm going to push it back out. Number one, I'm going to have my voice heard. I'm going to have my voice heard consistently, engaging in those representatives that represent me. And then in addition, make sure that you're making economic decisions that support the people that support what you believe in and don't support the rest, right? And that's a little tougher. Understand with people's lifestyles, it's a little tougher. But if you get engaged, become a force multiplier. We've got 74 million votes and many, many more than that, right? You've got at the state level, the county level, we're a red nation with blue cities, okay? A red nation with blue cities. And that's what I'm saying. We're winning here. And all the people with the sky is falling, I didn't say it wasn't going to be, I didn't say it was going to be tough. In fact, I want to get a quote here. Rahimi, pick up. I got a great quote. One of the engine room people in the war room sent me overnight, and I want to pull this quote up about from Hudson. It's a British Protestant Christian missionary to China back in the early part of the 19th century. Later part of the 19th century, later part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century. China Inland Mission. He was the founder of the China Inland Mission and a revered character of bringing the Word of God to China. And that's why today, remember, China's got, I think, more active Christians than the United States does when you talk about underground house evangelicals coupled with the Catholic Church. He spent 51 years in China, did 11 trips. His name is Hudson Taylor. And somebody sent me this last night. By the way, we got some great communication I'm going to try to share about all of this. But he said, Hudson Taylor had a great quote. And I want to quote, commonly, there are 3 stages in God's work. Commonly, there are 3 stages in God's work or work for God. 1, impossible. 2, difficult. 3, done. 3 stages in work for God. Impossible, difficult, and done. Embrace that today from Hudson Taylor, who gives us that voice from China, where he was brought the Word of God, the Word of the living God, to Lao Baijing back in many decades ago. Was a great man, and really I think that's when they sent it to me last night. The engine room of the war room said, "Think about this."
Reminds me of another quote: "Difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week." You know who said that?
Who?
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z. That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep. I just want to, and what I was driving at there as well with the mentioning of the distribution mechanisms is this. In addition to it being all for free and all of that, what we need you to do, because I've noticed especially an uptick in haters on our podcast. Lots of lefties now reviewing the podcast, so we need to make sure that if you're listening to us on podcast,
the game is they're going to try to drive the ratings down by giving you 1 star. So we need everybody out there to download the even if you're not going to download the podcast and give us a review. Download the podcast and give us a review.
We also, by the way, got called all old men. And I was particularly upset about that, being in the prime of my life at 30, in one of the reviews, in one of the 1-star reviews. We got called all old men. I'm 34 years old. Do you mind?
I know he just
I'm in
acts
the
like
prime
he
of my
likes
life. I
that
just
old man.
dressed like I'm 60 years old.
We've had a slight technical problem in studio. I think it's not fine outside, but
Yeah.
we got to make sure I get the clock. Okay, there we go. We're back. We're back live again, or at least back live inside the studio. I want to make sure everybody look. You got Revolver, you got Populous Press, you got Gateway Pundit, you've got the Georgia Star and all the Michael Patrick Leahy papers. You've got what Finger. You've got some tremendous aggregation sites. If you go to these aggregation sites today, you basically go now. You still, to me, got to go to the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times to understand the financial news. But if you go and want to see what's happening on the right and see a totally different take than what's happening with Drudge, that you've got to go. How much time do we have now? 1 minute. Okay, fine. We've got
no clock.
We've got no clock. There it goes.
It's
in.
going in and out. So we don't know how much time we got left.
Our internal studio monitor has just basically collapsed here, but that's okay.
My internet's collapsed, by the way. My whole computer's collapsed. So we're under attack here.
Too much DDoS attack.
Yeah.
Victory begets victory. The amnesty bill, the big amnesty bill, they're not going to push. They're going to try to break it in pieces. That's because of this audience. That's because of all the concern that you showed about this. And I'm going to tell you, the whole Biden situation is going to start coming unwound. The executive orders don't make any sense. They're radicalized, and that's why people are standing up against it. The most radical, and I love what Terry did. You had 20,000 people from this audience sign up for his for on air for the American sports thing. You got to fight these executive orders. The radical nature of this, you just got to confront it every day, fight it every day. And yes, if people say the sky is falling, hey, we're going to have some tough days. Don't get me wrong. The January 20th was a tough day, right? But we're going to get to victory. Okay, we've got to jump here. We'll be back in a minute. Hey, welcome back. Sorry for the technical problem. We're trying to figure out where it is between ourselves and Denver. By the way, this is what happens when victory begets victory. They start getting nasty about it, right?
Hold on, I got the top theories from the live chat were: have the CCP taken you hostage? Has the FBI broken down the door? A big tech taking you offline? And let me be very clear: if any of those things happen, I would live stream it. Okay.
Yeah. I want to go back to what's happening in this town, and particularly with Biden, and go back to the White House. This is why the people that are curled up in the fetal position, these people are not 30 feet tall, right? Yes, you've got the tech oligarchs, you've got the corporations. This is a situation that, quite frankly, the right has let atrophy have allowed to happen over the last 10, 20, 30 years. A lot of this is dealing with the economic policies of the Republican Party and how they basically fed the enemies of the populist movement, and people sitting there want to crush people. But you can see in the Biden administration, it is not crisp. This is with a media that's doing nothing but saying, oh, the inaugural address was Lincoln's second inaugural, all this nonsense coming from there. There's total softballs. But even in that, you're not seeing it crisp. You're not seeing it sharp. You're not seeing it on message, correct?
Yeah, and I think you're also seeing there's this Twitter account now that's Biden voters posting their own L's. I don't know if you're familiar with this trend, but I think the first one was journalists posting their own L's, and it was about journalists complaining that other people were being mean to them while they were kind of getting owned, right? And now there's a Biden voters one, and what it is it looks at all the people around the country who are tweeting how disappointed they already are in this regime, in that it isn't getting done what they thought. I mean, they're complaining, and I think rightly so. If you're a Biden voter, if you're one of the 8 out there, you are right to complain that, hey, you wanted your checks, you wanted health care, all these priorities that they told you all along the way, and what are you getting instead? Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. You're getting an executive order about the power grid and the 90-day suspension of the Chinese being put into. You are getting owned to your faces, and it's not like we didn't tell you this was going to happen, but there is another underlying current here in Washington, D.C. Now, I don't, as you know, much to your chagrin, Steve, I don't really deal in the nitty-gritty of bills and Capitol Hill. It's just not my thing. I've never been interested in that from a British parliamentary perspective. I'm 50,000 foot high. Where do we go?
Right.
And at the 50,000 foot level, what you also have to do is keep your ear to the ground as well, to keep your ear to the ground for rumblings of what's taking place. And the rumblings in Washington, D.C. are that this administration has no... regime has no political capital. There's nothing.
What do you mean by that? Because I've got Richard Barris looking at it. He says it's at 47, 48%. Other people, the guys at Rasmussen say it's 48% approval. You've got a thing today that says he's at 63%. Where on the polling do you really think he stands as far as the approval rating, and where's the political capital?
The polling is very it's very Potemkin. Look at the HR1 polling that we read from the beginning of the show. What they say to people is, this is a bill about transparency and getting big corporate money out. They don't actually tell you what's in the bill, and then they ask you your opinion on it. So the polling that we're seeing at the moment that gives Biden the 65 and the 68 numbers, the questions are set up in a way that you could really only answer questions like that. I mean, 59% of Republicans told pollsters that they were in favor of HR1. There's simply no realistic world where that would be the case. So the polling is Potemkin, but the reality on the ground in Washington, D.C., as a lot of people are telling me, the Biden regime only has a political capital so long as it's willing to force through corporate interests. As long as if they ever deviate from what the big corporate interest is, then all of the lobbyists, all of the law firms, everything that kind of runs Washington, D.C. will turn their backs on Biden and his team. And that's why the ordinary work that the people who voted for Joe Biden isn't getting done, because they're prioritizing the corporate interest.
Let's go back to, we got a couple of minutes. I want to go, this is the key thing. People want to know what they can do and what they can do today, right? We've always had our biggest victories on grassroots activism. I want to go back. Focus on 2010, the Tea Party revolt, the 62 or 63 the seats in the House we picked up in that big sweep that changed American political history and basically stopped the Biden administration, the Obama administration in its tracks. What are people supposed to do today? People ask me all the time, the phone blows up. How do they get engaged? What are they supposed to do?
Yeah, let's be very clear. They plan another 30 or so executive orders for this week. I mean, you look at the first Trump week, I think he did 1. Bush did 0. Clinton did 1. Obama did 3. Biden's going to end up with 30 plus after the first week. And so it's about staying on top of that information for a start.
And not to chase the ephemeral versus we said it from the beginning. We had Cortez on here. The amnesty bill was signal. A lot of this other stuff was noise.
Yeah, a lot of it is noise, but at the same time, you've got to look at intent behind a lot of these things as well, and who they're laying out the red carpet for when they sign a lot of these executive actions. Sure, some of them are like, naming a post office or whatever it is, but there are others, and it's up to the audience to go through the list of things, and we'll provide as much information as is humanly possible, but to go through and then to chase down. Believe me, there is no such thing as too often that you can make your voice heard with your representatives or with the White House. There just simply is, and no such thing as too often. They're not going to get tired of hearing from you. They're already tired of hearing from you, right? So just keep on tripling down.
No, this is about weaponizing the grassroots. We weaponize the grassroots. You color inside the line, but bold. You're in their face and you're relentless. You do not back off. That's how you're going to. First off, you got to. This is why we're going all around the country. Whether it's Liz Cheney, her leadership. Kicking around leadership here in Wyoming, in Arizona, in Michigan. They censured Fred Upton. Now, he's not going to run again, but they censured Fred Upton. You've got this going across the country to hold those 10 responsible. Coming out of Oregon, they're holding the 10 responsible. Hold people accountable. Hold them responsible. Get in their grills. Okay, short commercial break. We'll be back, but talking about the CCP next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
江湖里有句话，纪委加公安，权力大过天啊！我说这个坏纪委人员和坏公安就能翻了天啊！其中就是这么一个人。我们在未来的这个很多，我们这今天说不完，我们需要未来的更多的时间来一一说。我们有4个目标啊，这个我们把这个4个目标其中一个最小的级别的人，最这个级别最低的啊，但是它是比较重要的。
Okay, we had our first year anniversary on War Pandemic about what happened in the Wuhan lab. That right there is and you're seeing it in the background for those watching on television or live stream. But for our podcast and radio audience, that's the voice of the great Miles Guo, 4 years ago today, he started his broadcast in London to really out the Chinese Communist Party and to really strip the face off of this dictatorship that, as he said, is a warning to the West. And he came and said, look, the Chinese Communist Party is the enemy of the Chinese people. And more importantly to you, that's the enemy of the West, and particularly the enemy of people in the United States. Miles Guo was the first guy to say, and this is where the reason we were able to launch this show is that he opened our eyes to what was happening in China during Lunar New Year, which I think was January 16th, 17th, and 18th of 2020. He said, look, the whole country's being shut down. We're not going to have a Lunar New Year for the first time in 10,000 years because of a pandemic that's exploding out of Hubei province. And he said, look, they're gonna quarantine Wuhan because this thing's out of control there. So you saw 4 years ago today, and look at the changes we've had in American foreign policy. We are now, because of President Trump's election in 2016, we are now confronted the Chinese Communist Party. That's why yesterday President Xi's throwdown is so important. He came back yesterday, Raheem, and said, hey, symbolically, he did it in Davos about the Great Reset. This is the Great Awakening versus the Great Reset. And the Great Awakening is awakening to the way the system works, right? It's awakening to it's not a conspiracy. This is the way the world economic system works under globalization. This has been a project they've been working on for 20 or 30 years because it increases their profitability, increases their stock returns. The capital markets is all acquainted with that. They're taking interest rates down to zero. This is all intended to crush the populist movement and really make working class people, whether that's in China where it's slave labor or in the West where you're nothing but equivalent of Russian serfs, right, that you don't have the opportunities. Populism, and particularly center-right and conservative populism, is based upon we don't want state capitalism. We want free market capitalism. We want more entrepreneurship. And what we want is we want restricted labor pools so they don't have to compete with every person in the world for a job here in your country where you're a citizen and you pay taxes and you serve your country in the military and you undergird it with your involvement in civic society from building the churches to Little League and Girl Scouts and all the things that make American society run. And so the way to combat that is to combat the party of Davos. And President Xi is basically the spokesman for that. His speech 4 years ago, I think 72 hours before President Trump's magnificent and really where President Trump laid out the defense of the Westphalian system, the system of the sovereignty of the nation state, and that was the best unit to really have freedom, versus what Xi said 4 years ago was globalization. The problem we have is this nationalistic populist movement throughout the world. That's the problem. These people are problems. That's the fight we have today. President Trump won in 2016 for one simple reason: the managed decline of the United States by its elites, the uniparty elites, the permanent political class that is Washington, D.C. Raheem Kassam, you and Nigel Farage fought on one front. You fought Brexit. You've gotten the freedom of the people of the United Kingdom through your labor, through your hard work, your human agency. You know what it is to be a grind. Tell folks now what it's like, what they have to do, and how they have to focus.
Firstly, it never feels like you're going to win. It always feels like you're going to lose. It always feels like it's going to slip away. And from what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, especially living here in the green zone, it proves that kind of that Ronald Reagan quote was we've got to bring it up to date. It's not a generation away. It's a couple of weeks away sometimes, right?
Scary.
From people's freedoms just being eroded and eradicated. And look, there's a couple of things here that occurred to me over the course of the evening yesterday when I'm, doing my show prep as I do, and it's the scenes from the Capitol last January, this January, the same pallbearers moving the impeachment articles across the Capitol, and you just think, while China was foisting a virus, the impeachment articles were being moved across the Capitol. While China is invading its neighbors and launching a full-out assault and doing a charm offensive at the same time, in Davos, they're moving articles of impeachment across the House and Senate floor again. I mean, at some point, do we not just say the Democrats aren't just useful idiots towards the Chinese Communist Party, but they're actually taking direction at this point? And the reason I say that is not just to be, stun you into thinking about things like that, but look at the kind of one-party state that Phil Klein talked about right at the beginning of this show. This is out of the CCP playbook.
Miles Grove told you. The great Miles Grove warned you, said, hey, this is all just out of the misdirection plays and not to hold you accountable. We've got a couple of minutes left. What is on, by the way, historic day today. They're about to, after the show, they're going to swear in the Senate for the second impeachment trial of President Trump. And now this is when he's, obviously, his first term has been completed. His second term hasn't started yet, although I think down in Mar-a-Lago he's going to have a lot to say about stopping the radical nature of the Biden administration. What's up on National Pulse today?
Well, I just want to make mention real quick of Rand Paul. He's obviously going to try and test whether or not the impeachment of President Trump after his term has ended is constitutional. We'll be covering that. We don't know how long Joe Biden's going to go today. President Biden might cut into the National Pulse show at 3 p.m., so we'll see what happens there. But we have a whole lot to cover. I'm going to be talking more esoterically about this phrase you keep hearing as well, the big lie, and where that came from. We've done a lot of digging because the media seems to be using a quote from Mein Kampf with total just the freedom. And if that were ever done the other way around, Madeleine Peltz will be all over it. So we'll have some great guests on the show as well. We're just finalizing that right now. But I want to make sure that everybody knows also we've had some technical issues on this show. It appears that a lot around the country is actually been going down. Verizon's having outages all across the country right now. Some people are reporting that Gmail's down. I don't know whether this is tied to something else, but we do know that SolarWinds had a big attack a couple of months ago.
Hang around Real America's Voice. They're going to have the swearing in of the Senate as the jury for President Trump's second impeachment trial. Rand Paul's going to try to stop that all today, the entire process. National Pulse will be on at 3. We'll be back at 5 o'clock. Got a couple of scoops we're going to break for you guys at 5 o'clock. We'll see you back here at 5, National Pulse at 3. Thank you very much. I want to thank the team in Denver for helping us solve the technical problems, get back up on the air today.